So you signed up for AP Psych thinking it was the easiest AP class, but then you got super lazy throughout the year and now the AP exam is coming up and you're not feeling prepared. I was once in your position, stressed out, having trouble sleeping, but don't worry because if you watch this video, you can get a 5 on the exam. I'm currently a senior in high school and last year I took the AP Psych exam and got a 5, which in my opinion was pretty easy, and by following the tips in this video, I was able to guarantee that 5. In this video, I'm going to go over how I studied to how to easily get points on the exam. I won't be going too in depth about exam content since it's just a bunch of vocab. Basically, all you need to know for AP Psych is just a bunch of buzzwords and what they mean. There isn't much beyond that, so learning a majority of them is important, if not all of them. As you probably know, there's this huge textbook that's given to AP Psych students. Teachers might assign reading for that textbook and you might think it's a drag, and you're totally right. My teacher also assigned me reading questions each week for textbook chapters, but I barely did that homework, and in like the second semester, I stopped doing it entirely. Although that information is great to know, trying to remember every single detail is a lot of work and might do more harm than help. The tool that I use to get most of my information is actually one YouTuber named Mr. Sin. His YouTube channel has everything you need to know about AP Psych. Even if you didn't take the class and just learn from his videos, you could probably get a 5. His unit review videos are incredible in providing information concisely and clearly. Even if you have like a week left, his videos are pretty short so you can grind them out. How much focus you should put on the videos really depends on how much you recognize the information in the videos. In my experience, I put the videos in 2 times speed and didn't take any notes, but I recognize a lot of the information in the video already. But if you don't really know a lot of the information, you should watch the video thoroughly, maybe multiple times, and you can even take notes. If you have bad retention or really want to make sure you know all the buzzwords, Quizlet is definitely a good resource. But from my experience, some Quizlet have like more than 600 words. But for a bunch of the buzzwords, their definition is self-explanatory. Their name literally explains it. For example, learned helplessness, learning to be hopeless, or major depressive disorder, when someone experiences significant depressive states. So while it may seem like a lot, many of them are common sense and don't really need studying. Another big tip for vocab, try to group up vocab words to make them easier to remember. A bunch of vocab words are just different types of one concept, and associating them together makes it much easier to remember them. Some examples include different theories, types of parenting, types of memory, types of processing, and so much more. Grouping them up just helps you recognize their specific details easier. Also, when grouping them up, if you remember that one buzzword is the good version, then you can remember that the other version is the bad or opposite version. If you know what positive reinforcement is, then it's easier to remember what negative reinforcement is. Moving on to exam structure. For the MCQs, you're going to have to answer questions that test your understanding of different buzzwords. For many of them, they're going to give you a situation and you're going to have to pick an answer that best fits the situation, with many options including buzzwords. If you see buzzwords that you don't happen to know, try to pull apart the word itself in the context of the question. For instance, if a question involves someone experiencing stress and you don't know the answer but you see the buzzword general adaptation syndrome, you can pull apart the buzzword, try to understand that it has something to do with adaptation, maybe adaptation to stress, and could answer the question. There isn't much else to say about multiple choice, but try not to spend too much time on one question. Skip them if you're completely lost. You might find information in another question that helps you answer it. The biggest piece of advice I can give for multiple choice is to do practice tests and progress checks. They'll help you understand and get familiar with the AP format, which is really important. Moving on to the FRQs, the first question will be the AAQ with 6 different parts and 7 total points. First, you're going to want to skim the prompt and then the source to get an understanding of the situation. For part A, you will identify the research method used in the study, so answer that with one of 5 methods: experiment, naturalistic observation, case study, correlation, or meta-analysis. Make sure you understand the definitions and differences between these 5 methods. After finding the method, answer the question saying, the research method used in the study is whatever the method is. For part B, they're going to ask you what the operational definition of a variable is. You're going to want to look at the method section of the source to answer what the operational definition of the dependent variable is, or how they measure their findings. Whether that be recording how fast participants identified things or how many they did. Just make sure you understand the meaning of operational definition, and then just answer it like the operational definition of whatever the dependent variable is what they measured and how. For part C, they're going to ask you to explain the meaning of statistical data, and that could be differences in means or something else. Look to the results sections of the source to see the data the question asked for, and you're going to need to understand what the data means in the context of the situation. For instance, if the experimental group had a higher mean score of recall than the control group, that would indicate that whatever treatment the group had improved memory. Something like that. For part D, you're going to be asked about how ethical guidelines are followed by the study. For this, look at the methods sections for things that align with ethical buzzwords like informed consent, confidentiality, debriefing, right to withdraw, and protection from harm. If you see anything like that, then you found your answer. Just explain that the researchers applied the ethical guideline of buzzword by what they did. For part E, you will explain the extent to how the study's findings can be generalized or applied to a bigger population. For that, look up the participants of the study and recognize the sample size, diversity, method of selection, and location. If the sample is small, not diverse, or not randomly selected, generalization would be limited. After you understand the characteristics of the sample, answer the question with the study is/is not generalizable to the population relevant to the study because, and your reasoning. Lastly, for part F, you will answer whether or not the findings support or refute the researcher's hypothesis, and you can get 2 points for this. To get both points, you need to accurately use at least one research finding to explain your answer. Look at the results section to see what the results actually are and to see if those results support the hypothesis. First, describe the results of the finding, explaining what the numbers mean in the context of the situation. Then explain whether or not those findings support the hypothesis and why. And that's all for the AAQ. For the EBQ, there's also 7 points that you can get, but 3 parts. Again, first skim the prompt and the 3 sources. Part A is worth 1 point and you're going to have to develop a claim that answers the question. It's pretty basic, just answer the question with the relevant answer that can be supported with evidence. Choose the claim that's easier to support based on the sources provided. Part B has 2 parts, and in the first you will identify one piece of evidence from the sources that is relevant to your claim with correct citation. Just put in parentheses source A/B/C at the end of each sentence. Include numbers and data in your response. In the second part of part B, you can get 2 points by connecting that evidence to your claim by using an AP Psych concept, theory, or perspective. First, just explain how the evidence supports your claim, then just use a buzzword that relates to the evidence and claim and explain what it means and its relevance. Something like, this evidence supports my claim because blank, and this relates to buzzword, which is relevant to the situation because blank. For part C, do the same exact thing, just with evidence from a different source and a different buzzword than part B. That's pretty much all for the FRQs. The best way to get good at writing them is definitely to do practice, so do as many practice FRQs as you can, and look at a bunch of examples that do get the point. Finally, the most important piece of advice that I can give is to sleep early and not study the night before. If you don't have the energy, you won't be able to focus on reading the passages and just be unable to answer questions, so just go to sleep. And that's everything. This video isn't supposed to be an in-depth overview about the exam, but just the important tips if you're running out of time. Even if you think you're finished, just persist and try not to give up. There's so many ways to get points, so if you just write something down, you are bound to get something. Thank you for watching, and please let me know what videos you want next. Like and subscribe for more.